after a brief intermission of shows. A good amount has went on in that time. We've both become fathers. There's the world's went through a lot of different things. I moved across the country twice and back to pretty much where I started, which is great. And how's Mike doing today?
Mike is doing very well. I told my wife last night, I said, "Hey, guess what I'm doing at noon tomorrow?" And she gave off just a bunch of guesses. And I was like, "No." I was like, "Think kale." And she's like, "Oh, podcast." I'm like, "Yeah." So when's the last, it's funny. The most memorable podcast and the one that people still bring up the most is probably when I was at my mom's house in Florida, and the guy was yelling at me for being too loud, and we were recapping worlds, and I thought it was a joke, and it wasn't a joke. The dude was legitimately really mad in my mom's retirement community.
Yeah.
So, and that was like 5 years ago. So I don't think we've done one since before. It was right before Sterling was born,
Yeah.
and so Sterling is now 4.5. Is it, or
Yeah. He
just
turned
4 years
four in
in?
April. So he's a
Yeah,
little
yeah,
over 4 years. So
yeah.
yeah,
So uh,
time flies. Like it seems like, yeah, pretty much it just didn't make it possible for me with everything else once he was born.
yeah,
I think every kid's different, and mine, I think everyone feels this, but I'll be confident in saying that mine requires a little extra attention than most. I don't know where he gets that from, but he definitely does. Yeah, and then it's just this constant moving of life and
moving.
stuff, moving and just trying to figure out how to best incorporate all of my family's needs and keep everyone's my wife wanted to go back to work, so then it's like, oh, I have more, I'm getting caught up on work, but now she wants to go back to work. It's just a podcast in between there. It just has not been possible, but
Yeah.
things are looking up, and it's good, half a decade later. And I'm happy to talk to you, and I hope a couple people out there are happy to listen to whatever we have to say today.
I think they will be. So I mentioned this before, we started, but you've got a Cadillac racing shirt on, but actually you're most known for having the quad steer GMC Sierra, which I don't know how many views those truck videos have gotten in proportion to the Strongman videos,
Oh, on
but is it true that
TikTok.
it's is it
Yeah.
way more than the Strongman
Oh
videos?
my God. On TikTok, I've gotten, like, I have multiple videos with a few million views, which is, you know, um, yeah, just, like, just another free shirt. I've actually, I'm so down on like my free, like, event slash supplement slash random gym shirts that people have sent me. Like at one point I'm like, I'm just gonna get rid of this, and like, picking up my kid from drop off, and being 37, I'm like, I don't really feel like wearing many graphic tees anymore. I'm usually dressed more like Mike these days, but for some reason I didn't today. And it's just a shirt I got at a booth at Laguna Seca, for Cadillac Racing, and it's probably way too old to be wearing, but you know, it is what it is. But yeah, on the with the truck thing, it's like, I don't know if people, obviously, why would they know it, but I've always been really into cars and automotive. I think growing up, kind of in the country where you don't have, like, you can't really walk to your friend's house or like into town or anything. And with like a parent that's just like somewhere all the time, um, like, I just can't, it was just such a beacon of freedom, cars. And then they were also, I lived on a ranch, so they're everywhere. So,
Hmm.
you gotta mess with them. There's like broken down trucks, and you try to get it running and stuff. So just, I was just like, I can't wait to get into cars. And I always liked to restore cars and old cars, and I had some uncles that were into it, and then I'd hang out at their shops, or they'd restore old truck. And actually built, uh when I was like 14, a Chevy car website. And it was starting to take off. But then, like, other things happens, and then I was 14 and didn't have a computer. I could never get, like, because I was 14, I couldn't apply for like the monetization things that were there,
Yeah.
you know, because you can't legally. But yeah, I was on like eBay selling car parts at 14 before they really had like a way to check for that in like 1997, 98. You know, and that's early. Anything pre 2000, I feel, is early internet. And I still have the name Full Size Chevy on eBay, which that's a hard one to get. That
Full size
website,
Chevy is your eBay handle?
yeah, since
That's awesome.
98. And you know, that ended up being, I think it's gone now, but that was like one of the most popular truck websites through the mid 2000s, and was like getting like millions of views. And I almost registered the domain, but it was like a day behind. I couldn't get my mom. I'm like, hey mom, you gotta put this. And I probably could have sold that for, you know, a couple, probably more money than I ever made on Strongman. But
Perhaps.
basically, I've been trying to figure out how to make a living on the internet my entire life, is what I'm getting at. So.
It seems that way. And now you're doing the reviews, and Sterling has a
Yeah.
YouTube channel. Yeah.
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 It just always seemed like something to do. Maybe again, it's, you know, being stuck in the middle of nowhere and just seeing, you know, doing farm manual labor doesn't seem very, you know, appealing. Not so much appealing. I like doing that stuff, but like, you saw people that look pretty broken down late in their life. I'm like, oh, I think there's an easier way to make a living than that.
So speaking of like just working outside,
Mm-hmm.
have you followed any of what Brian Alsruhe has done
Yeah, I
since he
talked to him
closed his
about it.
gym?
It's fun.
Yeah. So it's pretty sweet. So he's building a cabin right now, right? Like
Mm-hmm. Or
cutting the trees
multiple or
down.
something.
Yeah. So that's interesting to follow that. I mean, I've always found Brian Ellsworth interesting,
For sure.
and this is just an interesting, like, you know, okay, I guess he is. Yeah, he bought a bunch of land, and he's like, you know, I'm going to build a cabin. It checks. It all checks. I got to meet him in person once, and yeah, I like the dude. So glad he's doing that.
Yeah, you know, it is an interesting thing to talk about, since it's been, you know, basically 5 years since we've done a podcast,
Mm-hmm.
and we've now been in this, you know, whole strength sports fitness sphere for a decade or two, basically, right? To see like everyone who trying to like figure out new things they enjoy in life other than
Mm-hmm.
benching, deadlifting, squatting, you know, and
Yeah.
overhead once a week.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
interesting to see, you know, people like to, you know, and then some don't.
Mm-hmm.
That which is also interesting to see. Some people just keep like hitting their head into a brick wall over and over, expecting something else to happen differently, because, you know, there's a finite time that works. And then, you know, I think it's interesting to see the evolution of people you've kind of, even if you, like you said, you met once or maybe none, but you
Yeah.
know, over a decade or two.
I think I told you this, but I sort of feel like I'm at the last chapter of me wanting to spend so much time devoted to strongman, because I have
Mhm.
so many other things that I'm interested in now. Things in the community. Obviously, my daughter takes up a lot of time, and she's amazing. So she's, you know, just a little younger than Sterling, so she's about to turn 4. Uh, and then I've taken up, just this beginning of this year, I took up rucking more as an opportunity to connect with my friend Simeon, because we just could never line up training together, and it just wouldn't work. And obviously, you know this, you know, a lot of times you really want to train with someone, but it's just like, they live a couple hours away, or your schedule, you know, they work nights, you work during the day. So Simeon and he got up on Christmas last year and just walked for 4 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay. And he posted about it. And I'd already thought about starting to ruck. And I texted him the following week and said, hey, do you want to like do this rucking thing together? So we just started rucking every Sunday morning, and we invited a couple more people, and we just go and have conversations for a couple hours. And we have a really nice trail throughout our city. And just talk about life, and, you know, similar stuff that you and I like to talk about. But it's nice to be outside, because I spend so much time inside, you know, in my office.
Yeah, that's pretty much where I got at, where I got to is like, so I used to work outside in agriculture for most of my strongman career. When I was doing it. And then once it's kind of like, be careful what you wish for. So it's like, I tried to build up starting strongman so much. And like, then everything's doing this. Like I did some computer work with my old job, but like, then it's like every second is this about strongman. And then, every single person and they're worried about what you do is like, then like, I don't really want to then spend time in the gym.
Yeah.
And then like if I work out, it's usually at a random time and not for as much time as it used to be when my whole life was around it. Like we all had different things. So we'd get together and we'd do events for like 6 hours, and I
Yeah.
used to do it with Obi and Evan and all my friends out
All day,
there.
all day,
Yeah, all
all
day.
day,
You'd
all
eat in
day.
between, then you go out to eat after. It was like that's what
Yep.
you did on Sunday. But it's a lot easier to do that when you're 24 and you don't have a family. And some people can still get that. I guess you could still do it, as your thing you got to do and get away for the week. But it's just it doesn't appeal to me as much. And for a while I was doing it with another friend every Sunday earlier, but then, just moving around and I've had some injury issues that makes doing anything loaded like that hard to do. So yeah, I've been doing similar where it's just like if I get time, I like to go. I take these past 2 weeks, which has helped me a lot. I've take my puppy teddy bear for a walk every morning. It's only like 0.7 miles, but we have these things called hills. So like the whole way it's up, it's
Mm-hmm.
uphill and pretty steep. And just doing that's helped me a lot. Just mindset and health and just dealing with things. There's something. I mean, how many podcasts are going to be where two guys talk about how people need to walk more? But
Uh, yeah, yeah,
it's great. If like I have time, I live 10 minutes from the beach, and I'm like, am I going to sit here and do like deadlift? Like it was fun to do deadlifts and all this stuff
yeah,
for so long because you don't know what's possible. And like I feel like I got to the point where I know for me what was possible. So now I'm just doing it to try to just do it. And I'm like,
yeah,
I could just go walk on one of the most scenic parts of the world that people from everywhere come to and just
yeah.
have a more peace. Like, I feel like uh, for me at least, like training strength was such a release of like all this
Mm-hmm.
pent up, anger at everything.
Yeah,
Um, that when I have recreational time, I like it to be a little more mellower now than like
yeah.
getting all jacked up. Um, Try to like calm myself down instead of being in this constant like, you know, tense state.
Yeah.
I still lift, but more just machines and bodybuilding because that's making me feel better. The way I put it is like I spent like my entire life, like 30 years, basically, from 15 to just, about 30
Mm-hmm.
testing my body.
Yeah.
No, I just want to enjoy it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I don't want to see what it can, I don't want to, whatever I do, I don't want to push to that absolute limit. And
Mm-hmm.
some people will think that's giving up or whatever, but
Dude,
I just,
it's so I'm glad you said that. So you and I have talked, even though, obviously we don't have a podcast, we talk every single week, probably a couple
sure.
times a week, well, for like the last almost 10 years. So,
Hmm.
uh, last summer, when I finally got to compete at USS Nationals after training for it for 2 years and making like my main goal was just to win. Like that was it. There was no My goal was to win. It was nothing. It wasn't second, it was third. My goal was to win. And I had the worst uh it wasn't luck because there was a series of events that led to it, but I coached all morning and then I attempted to compete after being on my feet for 7 hours and I completely fell apart and I realized how much I had really hated most of my training leading up to it, how I wasn't enjoying this anymore, and how I just didn't want to be there.
Yeah.
And I aside from being with my friends, I really started to question, like, why am I doing this? Uh, and am I really spending the time in my life that I have doing the things that I really should be doing? So I went back and I started training in the mornings, and I've been doing that for just over a year now. Don't get me wrong, like it's not fun waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning. However, that is the only time of the day where, I have a couple of other crazy friends that wake up pretty early, but other than them, the world is completely silent. Like I feed my dogs, I go out, I train, and I have a good sense of like how I feel that day because right out of bed you're like, ooh, okay, all right, maybe I'm not going to push this hard today, but I finish that, and then the rest of the day I have to kind of do what I need to do. Go wake my daughter up, take her to school, uh, but making that mindset shift that I'm supposed to be doing this because I enjoy it, not because it's a chore. I mean, I do so many other things that I have to do. I want to do what I want to do. And that really, I don't know. I mean, like you said you can call it a cop out if you want, but I feel like you've got uh you've got one life to live, and if you're honest with yourself and you're like, am I doing what I really want to be doing? I mean, I don't to be like the best 231 in the world. Like, are you serious? I don't have what it takes to beat someone like Camby. I mean, I could maybe beat him on one event, like when he's on an off day, maybe. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to be the 105K world's strongest man. And frankly, I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
I want to go. I want to have fun. I get so much more enjoyment out of watching the people that I coach grow with me, and then seeing how happy they are when they've crossed like that milestone, or that they're like, I never thought I'd get here again, or I never thought I would achieve this. uh, I get so much more joy from that than, okay, I took first at this thing. So I don't know, I guess I'm in it for different reasons now. Well,
Yeah, I think it's really just maturing, what we're
yeah.
both talking about. And I think if you're someone who there is something, and if you have that feeling in you, which I'm sure you had, and I know I had, of you want to know what you can do.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
want to be able to
Yeah.
know, like, and you
Yeah.
want to try to
Yeah.
do better. And I'm not trying to dissuade people from going on that path and that journey, because you got to figure it out.
Yep.
Like I get all these questions like, oh, I'm 5'10". Do you think I could? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what you can do. You can say what you can do, and you have to figure that
Mhm.
out, and you have to go down that journey. And I think that's an important thing for people to do, to then help them throughout their whole life. Because if you never try to push yourself and figure out what that limit is, I think you kind of, I mean, I wouldn't know because I feel like I have, but I can understand. I don't think that that's going to end up being a fulfilling life overall.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter if you are starting at 40 and you never
Mhm.
have, or you never felt like you have. You just have to go down that path. But there comes a point when you're going down, you're on that journey, and it's like, I feel like I figured it out, and now I'm just doing it because I feel like it's what I've always done. Maybe it's what people know you for. It's what all of your
Yeah.
friends do. So you want to
Hmm.
keep doing it. And then you just kind of are, like I said, just hitting your head against a wall over and over. And you won't actually, it's hard to admit that if you don't enjoy it anymore, because it ends up
Yeah.
being a lot of your identity.
Yeah. Yeah. You
Like,
watched, obviously you watched The Sandlot, right?
of course.
Yeah. So at the end of The Sandlot, when everyone moves away, and they just that position, they don't fill that position. So, and then eventually I think it's just Benny that's left at the end. I don't remember. There's only a couple people left. So, and then they all kind of they do their own thing, and they talk about where they're at in their adult lives. I kind of feel like that's where I'm at with, I had it at one point, I think had almost 40 people on my team that I was coaching.
Mm-hmm.
And now I think we're down to about 15. And as through attrition, as people go on and kind of do other things, I just decided that, for sure locally, people will be like, hey, I want to come train, I want to work out. I'm like, "Hey, yeah, that you sure. I mean, you can come check out the strongman stuff, but I'm not bringing anyone up through strongman anymore, bringing more people onto the team, trying to make the team any bigger." And I kind of feel like I'm in that Sandlot phase where I'm like, we've had an amazing run, and I mean, you're probably the best person that I ever met through the sport, and I don't, we only met uh, through Strongman, right?
Mhm.
Otherwise, we may never have met. Uh, so it's given me so much, but I don't think, yeah, I don't know how much more time or energy I need to pour into like that specific aspect of my life, if that makes sense.
Totally. No, I appreciate that, Mike. And I feel, likewise. Yeah. And and that's the thing is like, I've just, the stuff I've been trying to figure out in my head too is you don't really owe it anything. Like it feels like I've gotten so much. And then like
Yeah,
at some point you feel like you owe something and you really don't.
yeah,
No one does. Like, you to, I don't know how like you had 40 people that you're helping train and a full-time job and everything else, and you like still went going to school and got a doctorate, um right, and like all this stuff. Like I don't know how you do all that. Like I just train people and do stuff, and like I can barely keep that together. Sometimes I keep my training together, but just everything else, like then like I've had a hard time figuring out my own training, et cetera, and that. So like, oh, like it's not even your job. You're not owning a gym that provides for your, you for your income to support your family or anything. It's just
yeah,
another thing you're doing. You definitely don't owe anyone anything, um, to that extent. And I think a lot of people feel like they do. And it's not to say you should only take from this. That's not what I'm
yeah,
saying at all. There's a lot of
yeah,
people that are like that too. But it's just phases. And I think always be interested in the sport, and it's nothing against the sport. It's just us in our own phases of life, um, where it is just at a phase where it's not the all-consuming part of our life, which that can only last for so. If something's all-consuming, it can only last for so long. That's anything.
I'm gonna pull up this quote because I don't want to mess it up. Let's see. So it's a quote from Buddha, and it's the trouble is you think you have more time.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned like the stuff that, I know externally it seems like how is Mike involved in so many different things, and I think the reason I am is because at this point I've pretty much pared my life back down to exactly. I know why I have a why for every single thing that I'm doing, and it can get tiring sometimes, but I have a why for uh, why we're doing this podcast right now, because it's another opportunity for me to have a conversation with you that's hopefully going to positively impact some other people. So like uh, that's an easy thing for me to allocate time for, because I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to do this thing for this reason, and it's important to me. Uh, I started to look at my life and go, okay, well, why am I involved with this organization? I really don't know. And I just stopped going, and nothing changed. Why am I pouring so much into this particular person and they're pouring absolutely nothing into me? I don't know. So I'm not going to pour into them anymore. Uh, and I've just continued to do that. And I'm really brutally honest with myself about where I spend my time and why I'm doing the things that I'm doing. And because of that, I end up having more white space than I used to. Even though I'm doing so many things, I've cut out so much fluff that I'm really only doing what I want to be doing. And I tried to explain that to someone the other day when they're like, yeah, but this person wants me to do this, this person wants me to do that. And then today I heard about a book called If You Give a Pig a Pancake. And
Okay.
it's a children's book, but it's basically if you give a pig a pancake, then the pig is going to want some syrup. And then if you give the pig some syrup, the pig is going to want to wash their hands. So it goes on and on to say that regardless of how much you keep giving the pig or helping the pig, they're always going to keep asking for more. So at some point, you need to say no to things.
Yeah.
So, you know, what do you need to say no to so you can say yes to what you really want to be doing. Um, and I think that's what I keep doing. And I'm not perfect at it. And I don't know. I think that's a big reason why though.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think the problem with me is I'm so pessimistic in general. I don't want to do anything ever, that I need to try to, you know, you know what I mean? Like, I'll just do nothing, like, and I won't see anyone. And then I go like, I remember there was stretches, even especially before Sterling was born,
Yeah.
where we lived, and I was like, I don't think I've talked to someone in person in 3 weeks. And this is like, pre-pandemic, like,
Yeah.
just because I'd go for a walk, I'd work out at home in my gym.
Yeah.
I I maybe like wave at a neighbor, and I'm like, I don't think like I've like looked someone in the face other than my wife.
Yeah.
Or like, even she used to go travel for work, and she'd be gone at a horse show for like 2-3 weeks, and she'd be like, what have you been doing? And I'm like, I think I need to like go drive to this gym or something, because like I'm just, and like I kind of am okay like that. So
Yeah.
being used to being so alone is, have been then having like a little thing that's always stuck to you and needs you is definitely a transition for me. Not in a bad way. It's just odd not having like my own space. Like this week is the most space I feel like I've had in almost 5 years.
Yeah.
Just because he's going to preschool, or like a summer camp every day for
Yeah.
five days a week for, and he's also matured so much that he's just a lot more open. It's just odd.
I know you said you don't do anything, but and maybe that was before Sterling, but for sure, I mean, you and I have both spent a lot of time talking about being a dad because we both became dads in very, very similar times. I mean, our wives were both
Uh-huh.
pregnant at the exact same time. So
It's within like 6 months.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, Ellis turns 4 in August. So yeah, Sterling's 4 months older.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, but you're a really like exceptional dad. I mean, you spend a
Thank
lot
you.
of time really being mindful about how you're raising Sterling,
Yeah.
and it's and you're I think we're both probably more maybe, because we use social media more, you see it a little bit more, but just you the way that you love him and you're like, hey, like here's my kid, he's awesome, like we did this thing. And I love watching that video of him in the Jack in the Box. That's probably,
When he was a little
I don't
kid,
know.
yeah.
That's probably my favorite video of him. I mean, there've been a lot of great videos, but I don't know. I can watch that one. It cracks me up every time because he knows it's coming and he's like, yeah, it's good.
So just a little backstory on that is that Jack in the Box, he wouldn't open himself, and that's kind of how his nature is. He's risk adverse. Certain things worry him more than other kids. So he'd get it right to the end, and then he,
Hmm.
even at that age, like, you finish it. He couldn't do that last click. And he's smart enough, he'd know right when it's to it, and he'd be like, huh, but he wants it to happen. He wants the surprise. So that's why, like, I'm videoing it because I'm like, I think he's gonna actually open it himself. Like you can see the little hesitation. It's so wild to see these little personalities, like they're this
Hmm.
big, and he's like, he's the same now as he was then. It's just easier to understand it.
Yeah.
And I think people really need to just pay attention to their kid individually. That's how I feel about fatherhood. Like, I like, because I am on social media, and I share a lot of stuff with my family, and I had somewhat of a following from other stuff I've done. You just sometimes get stuff, and I'm like, first off, like, I've tried, like, it's just unsolicited advice in general. Like, yeah, I know. Yeah. Okay. Oh, he didn't sleep. Oh, melatonin. Oh, yeah. I've never fucking heard of it. Okay. All right. You know what I mean? But anyways, so just to see it, and he did it, and it still surprised him, and he was mad about it and reacted. Yeah, it's funny. But yeah, it's just how he is. And I appreciate the compliments. I'm really, like, I feel like I've done like all those kind of things, and I was searching for something, not to get too much into everything today, but just not having a dad in my own life, then becoming a father, trying to figure it out, seeing his needs and like just
Hmm.
stuff of my own childhood, it all comes up. It just seems important. And it is hard to manage that in between, like I'm basically a stay-at-home dad that still has to work to pay all the bills. Like,
Yeah.
not discounting everything my wife does, that's amazing. But I think, a lot of people are similar boat. Like everyone works and then doesn't, it's tough. But I'm very happy to be able to do it. And I actually, I was trying to make like, because I got offers to help build me a gym and other ways I could have built
Hmm.
starting Strongman and everything else built. But I always had this like thing in my head, even before, years before I had a kid, on
Hmm.
how I want my life to be, so I could be around when I have my kid.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and I think there's things I missed out on, and probably could have done better business wise. But like I was just like, I always kind of had this idea that I just wanted to be like really around and available. And I'm very like, out of everything, like I might complain a lot of stuff or whatever, but I'm super grateful that I am able to do that. And
Yeah.
the people, all the people that have always supported starting Strongman and my clients and everything, that give me that you know flexible kind of, I can kind of work pretty much anywhere, anytime, and in small spurts and whatever to get it done. It's been a challenge these last few years, but I'm still able to do it. um I'm very thankful for.
Oh man. I'm trying to think of, like, I don't even know how to expand on how like transformative becoming a parent was in terms of like making you just realize, what's important. And then
Mhm.
honestly, it took me a little bit of time until, because when Ella was really small, and she was with my wife a majority of the time, you know, breastfeeding, and I'm like, okay, what do I do? Like, what do I do with my hands, right?
Mhm.
And so once she got older and then COVID hit, I spent a lot more time around Ella, and I
Sure.
was like, and I would just kind of like study her. You're like, what are you thinking? Like, what are you looking at? And the more she kind of explores the world and just tells me what she's looking at and tells me what she's seeing. Like the other day, I actually did a webinar for the Military Childhood Education Coalition, and they were talking about, how to foster gratitude and curiosity in your kids. And as I'm explaining some of the things that I've done with Ella and thinking about why I do them, I'm like, okay, because I want her to, you know, I want her to want to know more, right? So like the easy thing is when she says why, and you just go just cause. But when she says why, I go, okay, even if I'm tired right now and I don't really have space for a long drawn out conversation about why, so let's just do this. Let's go down the tree. So why is the turtle in the water? Well, the turtle's in the water because turtles live in water, or this turtle does. Well, why does he eat that food? Well, he eats that food because you tried to feed him Skittles the other day, and well, the turtle can't eat Skittles. Why can't the turtle eat Skittles? Turtle can't. So you know, to me, it's just answering like easy questions, but to her, it's formulating her view of the world. And yeah, I mean, being a part of that is really cool. And maybe later in other episodes, we talk about our own childhoods. And I by no means had a bad childhood. I reflect on it, and I had a very like unique childhood, kind of like a lot of us have. And there's so much more out there, and it's so easy to just text you and just say like, hey, what did you do during this situation? Or when kids aren't sleeping, you talk about uh like, well, here's how I feel today because I haven't slept in 2 days. And yeah, you're like, oh, you read all the studies, or you read all the posts that are like, gotta get 7 or 8 hours of sleep, and you're like, Like, how young are your kids, or do you have kids?
Or how
Because
involved are you? Like, or
yeah,
maybe
you're like, hey,
maybe they're just perfect. I don't know. Good for you, but I
you know,
wish.
when I hear that, sometimes they're like, yeah, my kid goes to sleep at 6:30 and sleeps until 6:30 in the morning, and they're like, doesn't your kid do that? I'm like,
No.
I mean, Ella's just going hard, like until 9 o'clock playing with the dogs, like,
Hmm.
you know. So I don't know.
Yeah, I like that's kind of what I was saying. Like, you just got to listen. I think general advice is fine, and most people mean well. But
Hmm.
my thing is from fatherhood and being a dad is just be you know there's no sense in shaming anyone for anything, and that goes into fitness culture as well. I always try to
Mm,
be inclusive with starting strongman. It doesn't matter how much weight someone is. Like, oh, is someone
yeah,
eating? Is someone eating poorly? In
yeah.
your mind, and then you try to think like they're a terrible person from it. Like, dude, everyone has
Mm,
different situations. Everyone has different resources.
yeah.
People, everyone could try to do better, sure, but like, fucking reality is reality too. Like, and some days it's just that's how it's going to be. Like, and the same definitely goes for childhood as well. Like,
Yeah.
I think I think as long as you listen to your kid, you'll be okay. And you try to, and yeah, like, it's pretty cool when you have all those moments where you're like, they're learning about stuff, and then you figure out that they know it now. Like,
Yeah.
and like,
Yeah.
think about those moments when you listen to, you like watch some documentary and it's like some crazy thing and you learn and you're like, that's incredible. You're doing the same thing for them about that a turtle can't eat Skittles, basically, like, to some extent. And it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
um yeah, Sterling, I think I have it to some extent. Like, I can remember lots of stats and figures, and I think that's what
Hmm.
helped me with Strongman, because I'll be like, oh, this person won that show. Like, I just
Hmm.
remember stuff like that in my head.
Yeah.
And he's like that, but like, I don't know if I just have more things to think about where it's
Hmm.
worse, but his is like, oh, he remembers stuff from when he was like 3 months old.
Mm.
And he's old enough to like start, and it's like terrifying, but like also like amazing.
Yeah.
So now he's old enough to like then explain it. He'll just say something like, yeah, we walked here and you took me into that store and got a burrito. And I'm like, dude, you were 4 in a thing, like, and
Yeah.
you just saw that store while we're driving by in our old neighborhood we don't even live in anymore, and you remember I pushed you in your little cart,
Yeah.
you know
Ella doesn't say
um
remember. She says lemmer, lemmer.
yeah. Uh-huh.
And I didn't know what she was, when you're starting to decode, you're like, what?
Yeah.
What does that word mean? And she said, remember when we went there? I'm like, oh, remember. Yes.
Yeah,
So yeah.
we were at another park near our old house, and it's like a little further down. And he was like, oh, we did Halloween here. And I'm like, oh, your first Halloween in October when you were born in April, we walked
How do
around
you
over
remember
here.
that?
What the hell? Like,
Yeah.
I think it's a little more because I think I'm wondering if their memory is gonna be better than we are because there's so much more documentation,
Yeah.
you
I don't
know.
know.
Because when he's stressed out, I have like a whole folder of like old photos and videos, like I just put in my phone.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if he's just, I think nostalgia is helpful for everyone likes to like look through old stuff, but it's just, compacted for him. um
Oh, man.
you know
I,
so
that's,
like,
I like that idea. I like that
it's,
idea of making a folder like that.
yeah, I just put them as favorites, and then he just
Yeah.
looks through it a little bit.
Hmm.
We look through it and he talks about what stuff was, and then I think like, what will like, yes, he has a good memory, but like, it's probably also easier. Like, I wonder if kids are just gonna, their memories are gonna be longer, because like, there's, how many pictures do you have when you're a kid? Like, there's like 5 of them when you're,
Like 5.
yeah.
Yeah. My mom maybe has 50, but I have like 5. Yeah.
Yeah, you're like, oh, that was
Yeah.
that day you went to the beach. That there's that one picture of you on the beach where, like, if we go to the beach, there's, you know, a whole video of it, and it's edited together, and your iPhone will make like my iPhone will make like a compilation of like, doesn't this seem like a memorable day? Like, I don't know. It's crazy. And in your featured thing, it'll put it to music, and it'll be like all these like different images and stuff. And I'm like, wow. So I wonder how that'll affect kids' memories long term.
I don't know.
Like,
I don't know.
but yeah, it's a wild ride being a dad, and it definitely, like you were saying, made me reflect on, you know, my whole life, like stuff you just kind of like go through, and then you have to like deal with a little person who's so vulnerable and whatever, and all their needs, and there's no filter, so whatever they express is what they express. Then you just start thinking about like your whole child and stuff, and it's yeah, definitely fun experience. It'll take everything you have. Like, I don't again, like when I talked about resources earlier, I think doesn't matter how much or little you have, I think kids will take all of it. Which is fun. But yeah, I think going forward we could talk about a lot of different things with this, and just different stuff as far as life, overall health and wellness and fitness, and just balance is kind of where I'm trying to figure out at this point.
Well, we made it pretty much the whole time without talking about Strongman nearly at all. So in the last, I got to go to a meeting in 12 minutes. Do you want to talk about Strongman for just a couple?
Yeah. I guess Worlds seemed pretty cool. I didn't go. It wasn't too far away from me, but
I'm going to publicly put out there that Novikov is my favorite Strongman ever. I love Zadrunas and always will, and to me, he will always be the GOAT. However, if I could like tap 1/10 of how ferocious Novikov is, I would even say that he might even outdo Mariusz Pudzianowski in terms of just raw intensity. It just doesn't seem. You know what? I will say that I think he is a little bit more intense than Mariusz, and the only reason I'll say that is because his strength is completely disproportionate to his weight. You know what I mean? Like he shouldn't be able to do that. Like, who's going to win the bus pull? Oh, I bet Tom will probably win the bus pull.
Sure.
And then Novikov just goes all out, and I think Stillman's coach right after is like, I can't believe what Novikov just did. Like, I mean, granted, it may have cost him the whole competition because he didn't have anything for the power stairs and for the stones. But the dude's just got like a switch that, I don't know, it's cool.
Yeah, he didn't win. So, just put that, congrats to Tom on 2.
Yeah.
And Tom is a great story in, in his own right. But like you look at Tom, and it's like, I remember looking at, Tom a couple of years ago, and you look like he has all the tools in the world to do this, not discounting them. There's a lot of people out there that you look at and say they have all the tools in the world to do it, and they never do it. But yeah, there's just something about those competitors like Novikov that it's like they just kind of know how to win, and they know how to do it. It doesn't mean it's going to be pretty, doesn't mean it's going to be repeatable. And they just have that other gear. Mariusz was very much like that too. It's very similar. I think he's a lot nicer than Mariusz was as a person overall.
Yeah.
But yeah, and he the bus pull might have cost him everything, but it seems like he also had to do that to have a chance. He went for it. And you got to go for it. The other thing I like in Strongman that I always appeal to is, like, I remember watching old Worlds, and there'd be like this big strong guy, and then he'd just do some there's these little things where it's like, if you just did this, you would have won that event. And then there's the crafty competitors like a Martins, a Novikov, that just, not that they, people say it's cheating, or like, just they just do little things, and they're just
doing a frame backwards.
Yeah, stuff like that. They just figure things out. They're thinking, and I think he's a economist. Like he has like a,
He's an
like
MBA.
yeah. So he's a smart dude,
Mm-hmm.
and I think there's always it's just big strong guy, and there's so much little things that go into just doing stuff and learning from those people. And that's the conversations I always like to have with people at contests. Just figuring out the little tricks.
Yeah.
Not necessarily getting stronger. We all want to try to get stronger, but like, getting stronger is kind of simple. You lift more weight over time, do more reps, etc. But like when it comes down to it, how do you do those minute little things that gives you that tiny advantage? Like, you turn left, instead of right at this moment, and shaves half a second off a medley and that. And I think people like Novikov and others are, real good at it. I was Martine's a very smart competitor as well. Like we both seen him since he was 240 pounds go up, so that's been impressive to see. Where he's at, getting second at Worlds, because Novikov basically didn't do the stones or something. I don't know exactly what happened there. But yeah, I've always liked that craftiness to it. And I like that Strongman has less rules, which allows for more creativeness compared to other strength sports, where it's like, if you like, if you do powerlifting or weightlifting, you basically, there's no craftiness. They've ruled out all the craftiness, like it's happened over time.
A dude wore a slingshot at I think you wore knee wraps and a slingshot at a powerlifting meet in the past 6 months. So that's impressive.
So yeah, but then that's also cheating. Like
that's also straight up cheating.
We know it's cheating.
Straight up cheating. Yeah. That's
like so there's a difference. There's that borderline. Like I like the strongman that's still at that point where people are trying to make rules. Like they see something like, no, that shouldn't be allowed, but we don't have a rule for it, and now we got to name it.
Baby on the thighs for car deadlift.
Yeah, or like Kaz did this. He decided to do the heaviest stone first. Back in the day, he's like, I'll be less tired. I'm tired by the time I get to the heavy stone, but I'm strong. Why don't I just do them backwards order? And then they're like, no, can't do that. Stuff like that. But I feel like just have less of those rules, though. Just let people be creative out there, which makes it fun.
Well, I gotta go to a meeting in 5. I had to throw in a 5 minutes. Dude, I enjoy talking to you, and hopefully folks get something out of this. So yeah, whenever we can make up and do this.
But if they do,
so I think
I know.
Dude, it's honestly talking about I mean, Strongman is amazing, but just ask yourself, what else about life do you want to explore? That's all.
Yep, that's a good way to end it. I appreciate it. I'm Kalle Beck. This is Mike Battolino. You're listening to the Strong Talk podcast, and we'll talk to you again in another 5 years.